How's your summer going? I can't believe how fast it's going by. Today is August 1st. 1 week from today is the Saxophone Retreat, the third annual inside-outside retreat for saxophonists. Our special guest this year is Chris Potter. I know I'm gonna be seeing some of you there. Very excited about that. If that's new information to you, check out our website, insideoutsideretreat.com. Hop on the email newsletter for that. That's pretty much how we communicate everything about the retreat, so you can hear about next year's. In the past 2 years, we've had Joshua Redman as a special guest.
Making music from the heart in a creative way, in a natural way with other musicians, and for the audience.
We've had Steve Wilson, Jeff Coffin, Aaron Goldberg.
Everything is caused by the thing that came before it. And I don't have to think about it. My brain just sings the next idea.
It's a really special week. You should just go check out the website if that sounds interesting. I got this great question from Sam about active listening. And I'll just say that if you haven't already seen it, I have a blog post and some videos on active listening and what that means to me. Just Google Bob Reynolds active listening and you'll find it. This is an extension of that, and I want to jump into it because I think it's really important stuff. But since it's been a little while, I also want to, just let's catch up a little bit. What's been going on? All right, well, took a little trip with the family, had some family time, not a vacation, just a trip, but good times nonetheless. What is that? What have you got? Seaweed? My buddy Wan Rowland came to visit. If you don't know Juan, he's a fantastic, really incredible tenor player and one of my dearest and oldest friends. We grew up in Jacksonville, Florida together. We made a record a couple of years ago. Oh, what's this? Here, oh, look at that. This is the one, actually. That happened to be right here. It's called Deja Vu, and it's us basically in a studio with a real band recording the songs that we used to jam together to Abersalds with in our parents' living rooms when we were in high school. Ben Wendell dropped by. We had a saxophone geek session. I think that should be its own vlog because we kind of go deep in the sax nerd stuff there. And then I had this gig at the Hollywood Bowl with Jon Faddis leading the Dizzy Gillespie All-Star, what do they call it, like celebration orchestra or something. It was a big band led by Jon Faddis playing. We played 5 Dizzy Gillespie charts with an LA big band and like a New York rhythm section. Lewis Nash on drums and Peter Washington on bass. Peter Washington is a bass player that's on probably half of the Crisscross albums that I have, especially from like the 80s and the 90s. And Lewis Nash is just one of the all-time greatest drummers. I mean, nobody swings like Lewis Nash. One quick recommendation. One of my favorite albums is this album by Joe Lovano called Tenor Legacy, and it's Joe Lovano with Joshua Redman, and look at this band. Look at this band, man. Let's see. And Mulgrew Miller on piano, Christian McBride on bass, Lewis Nash on drums, and Don Elias on percussion. Super, super swinging. Heck of a nice guy. Billy Childs was on piano. The reason I bring it up is that there was a very practical moment in going over the music, which was, a lot of the music was really difficult for this. Some of it was just stupid fast. by the way, one of the guest soloists was Charles McPherson, an alto player who used to play in Mingus's band. And this dude was, now he has, but he was turning 77 that week. It was really inspiring to watch him and listen to him. It was really, really cool. Okay, so let me back up. I get a question pretty frequently, and it relates to people seeing videos of me playing like this, where I'll be playing a G sharp, but they'll see my finger is on low B flat, or sometimes low C sharp. And I think this might be called like the articulated G sharp or something. Basically, you can use any of these low pinky fingers to get the note G sharp or A flat. Because they all trigger the G sharp key to lift up. So why would you do this? Well, for me, it's sort of become habit over the years. I don't do it as a rule. It's not like all the time, but I thought this provided a good example. So here's this chart for Manteca. Check out this measure right here. B flat, A flat, low B flat, and D. See this right here? Jumping from an A flat to a low B flat. Well, if you do that and you're playing G sharp, and then you're having to do a lot of pinky movement if you're moving from the traditional A flat fingering to the low B flat. If you just stick with low B flat from the beginning, it's a lot easier to access those intervals. All right, let's get into this question. Also, I'm gonna be in Nashville Monday night, like not even a week from now, playing at Rudy's Jazz Room. If you're in Nashville or know anybody in Nashville, I'll be there with Yannick Wisdala on bass and Sean Horton on drums and Nir Felder on guitar. That's Monday, August 7th at Rudy's Jazz Room. Here's the question from Sam. I'm a young jazz composer and saxophonist. When it comes to active listening, one of the biggest issues I run into is the idea of sitting with one record for a long time. Your anecdote about going to a record shop every now and again and immersing yourself in a single record seems like a great way to get to know records and solos. However, being in the digital age, all music is accessible at the drop of a hat. So for me, I'm used to being able to load my iPod with as many artists as I want, put shuffle on in the car, and jam out. When I throw an album on, the urge to switch it often arises because I'm used to just switching if I don't want to listen to the song in that moment. I totally know that feeling, by the way. Is there a good, effective way you think I can train myself to be able to just sit down with one record and immerse myself in it for a couple of weeks or even a month? So, I mean, I can certainly relate to this because with Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, whatever, name the service of choice, yes, we can get pretty much all the music we want to get our hands on at the drop of our hat. And I'm totally guilty of this, where I'll be on Spotify and it's like I'm hunting for something new that piques my interest, right? So I'm always like searching, and I'm very quick to skip, and I'm aware of it. I don't like that I do it. By the same token, life is short, and I don't want to listen to bad music or music that, when I was younger, we had CDs. That's all we had. So I had fewer of them. They cost me a lot of money. I would go on these trips to New York, and I would buy CDs at HMV on the Upper East Side, and they would cost me $17.99, $18.99 per CD. I mean, just think about that. That collection over there, all that stuff. I mean, each one of those CDs at some point in time cost me about $20. The upside was I listened to them a lot. I got a lot out of each one. And even if I didn't love it, if it wasn't my favorite, I found something to learn from it. So as far as a recommendation for how you can circumvent this modern luxury, one thing I started doing, even back as far as last summer, I was spending some time last summer where I would just force myself to listen to a full record each morning, like from start to finish. And I actually got this idea from Michael League, the bassist and band leader in Snarky Puppy, who probably for the past couple of years, he's been doing this too, because we recognize it's a muscle, and if you don't use it, it atrophies. So the same way that I used to write a lot by hand when I was in grade school and high school, and now most of the writing I do is by typing, or you're doing it on your phone. But I don't do a lot of handwriting, and even writing music, like you do it in programs. And so if I sit down and try to write 3 pages of longhand, my forearm will be tired. It didn't used to be that way, but the muscle atrophies if you don't use it. So as far as listening to music, I think you just start with picking an album. Just commit to listening to an album, start to finish. And I recommend this to my students. In fact, we did this with, what were we doing last month in the studio with, it was Blue 7 by Sonny Rollins, where I was recommending, look, before you start working on the transcription, on the part that I'm sort of assigning as a transcription nugget, I really advise you to listen to the song 3 times, start to finish, in headphones. 3 times in a row, just the one song. Because you will notice something on the 3rd time that you didn't on the first. It's like watching a movie that you've seen multiple times. You inevitably notice things on the 3rd or 4th time you see it that you never would have picked up on the first. Maybe it would help to look at it like this. Let's say you've got your albums and your artists here. Let's 1 album and, I don't know, let's say 50 albums. And then over here you've got your listening hours. 1 hour, 25, 50, 75. This is really just to give an example. It's of course not an exact number of hours. What we have today is a lot of people doing shallow listening. So like Sam said in his question, he's listening to lots of tracks, lots of people skipping around. So he's not getting very much time in. He's listening to a lot of people though, but it's, you know, it's shallow. Conversely, when I was in college, there was a really great player and he was very obsessed with one other particular player. Like he had this one hero and it was very obvious who that was. And so he spent a lot of time listening to this one artist, like a ton of time. And so his playing sounded, you know, he was great, but it was really obvious that he was checking out this one dude. I by no means have the magic silver bullet here, but I think there's something to be said for, I don't know, a smaller amount of artists and even within that albums that you really listen deeply to. And I think a more accurate way to put it is something along the lines of this. Again, this is super rough. But the idea that you'll have a few artists that you're really listening like a lot to. And this you know, number might be something like this or whatever, but you get the idea. So there'll be a few people, and then, but you're also getting a broad spectrum. And so this is what's happening. It's like, it's deep and wide, breadth and depth. It's something you just have to address, and I think it's very worthwhile, because shallow listening, it's great to experience a lot of stuff, but you just will not get the same impact out of it as you will by going deep with repetitive listening to the same thing. Great question, Sam. There's more piling up. I promise it won't be so long before the next vlog.